Professor Zilthana adjusted her 4 safety harnesses for the 7th time as she watched the human exchange student casually walk into the advanced engineering lab wearing nothing but what he called work clothes. A simple shirt and pants that wouldn't protect him from a gentle breeze, let alone industrial accidents. "Student Jackson," she called out, her vocal sacs trembling with concern. "You cannot enter the laboratory without proper safety equipment. The regulations clearly state." "Oh, don't worry about it, Prof," Jake replied cheerfully, already heading toward the plasma welding station. "I've done this kind of stuff before." The rest of the class, a mixture of Altarians, Centaurians, and vegan crystalline beings, watched in horror as the human approached machinery that required Level 7 hazmat certification. Their own safety gear was so extensive they could barely move, encased in environmental suits that could withstand explosive decompression, toxic gas exposure, and electromagnetic pulse attacks. The safety protocols exist for a reason. Professor Zilthana's scales shifted to deep purple, the color of extreme agitation. "That plasma torch operates at 20,000 degrees. The electromagnetic fields could stop your cardiac functions. The UV radiation alone could cause cellular breakdown." Jake paused and looked back at her with genuine confusion. "Yeah, but I'm wearing safety glasses." The safety glasses in question were a thin piece of darkened plastic that wouldn't have protected against a camera flash on most civilized worlds. Student Vextai, whose species had evolved on a low-gravity paradise world, was hyperventilating into his breathing apparatus. "He's going to die. We're all going to die. Why isn't he dead yet?" But Jake had already fired up the plasma torch and was expertly welding 2 pieces of hull plating together, the brilliant flame reflecting off his inadequate eye protection while molten metal droplets scattered around his unprotected skin. "Fascinating," whispered Dr. Catherine, the class xenobiologist. "His cellular structure appears to be self-repairing, and those droplets of molten metal that should be causing 3rd-degree burns. His skin is barely registering the contact." Professor Zilthana pulled up Jake's homeworld file on her datapad, something she should have done before allowing a Deathworlder into her classroom. As she read, her color shifted from purple to transparent, the Altarian equivalent of shock. "Class," she said weakly. "Student Jackson evolved on a world where his species regularly exposes itself to stellar radiation that would kill most of us instantly. They call it sunbathing and consider it recreational." She scrolled through more data. "Their normal atmospheric pressure would crush a vegan. Their weather patterns include localized atmospheric violence that generates more energy than our planetary defense grids. And they voluntarily subject themselves to controlled explosions for transportation." Jake had finished the weld and was examining his work, completely unaware that he had just performed a task that would have required a full hazmat team on any other world. "Not bad, though I probably should have worn gloves. This metal's pretty hot." He touched the recently welded seam with his bare finger to test the temperature. The metal was still glowing. "What are you doing?" screamed the entire class in unison. "Checking if it's cool enough to handle?" Jake looked genuinely confused by their reaction. "Relax, it's not that hot. Maybe 200 degrees? I've grabbed pizza out of ovens hotter than this." Professor Zilthana was frantically calculating the thermal tolerance levels in Jake's file. "Student Jackson, 200 degrees Celsius would cause immediate tissue death in every known species except Deathworlders, Dr. Catherine finished quietly. "Their pain tolerance alone exceeds our maximum survival thresholds." Jake had moved on to the next station, where he was casually handling radioactive materials that the other students couldn't approach without full body shielding. "You know, this stuff glows just like the radium paint my great-grandfather used to work with. Of course, that was back before we knew it was dangerous." "Before you knew it was dangerous?" Vextai was now connected to emergency life support. "How are you still alive?" "Well, great-grandpa died at 97, so I guess it wasn't that bad." In her final report to the university administration, Professor Zilthana wrote, Safety protocols designed for galactic standard biology are inadequate for Deathworld species. Recommend separate laboratory facilities for humans, as their casual disregard for lethal hazards is causing psychological trauma to other students. She paused, then added, also recommend counseling services. Half my class now believes they are living in a simulation where physics doesn't apply to humans.